Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I'm going to be talking about linear equations. So, this will be a review of things we've already learned previously. This is specifically to help prepare for the EQAO grade 9. So, let's get into it. The first question says, which of the following shows information from a linear relation between C and N? Now, how do we know if something is a linear relation or not? It's if the first differences are the same, right? If the first differences are the same, then it's a linear relation, okay? And I should also mention the x values must be evenly spaced, okay, for it to count. So this first one, the n values are evenly spaced. And so let's see here. We have the first differences as 1 and 3 minus 1 is 2. So it can't be A because the first differences are not the same. What about B? Well, B has the ends equally spaced, so that's good. And what are the first differences here? Well, let's see. We have 2 and then 2 again, right? 5 minus negative 7 would be 2, and negative 3 minus negative 5 is also 2. So this is the answer, so I'm going to circle B, and we can move on. Now, let's take a look at C and D and why they're not the right answer. Well, they would have the same first differences. If we were to calculate first differences, they would be the same, but the n values are not evenly spaced, right? For that strategy to work, the n values must be evenly spaced, and these are not. Zero goes from, we go from 0 to 4 to 16 rather than just going to 8. And same with here, we go from 0 to 5 all the way to 20, right? And so we do have to pay attention to those x values, or in this case, those n values, and make sure they're not jumping ahead on us, right? We want to make sure that it shows a clear linear relation where the first differences are the same and also the values of x, or in this case n, are also evenly spaced as well. Otherwise, it doesn't show a linear relation. Good. All right, number 2 says the total cost of yearbooks for a school is made up of a $375 set fee and a $25 uh, and $25 for each yearbook purchased. There is a linear relation between the total cost and the number of textbook purchased. What type of variation is this, and what is its initial value? Okay, so first let's review what is the difference between direct variation and partial variation. So direct variation is when the y-intercept is 0, and partial variation is when the y-intercept is not 0. Now in this case, there's an initial setup fee, meaning that if we purchase 0 textbooks, we still had to pay a setup fee of $375. So we may not want to work with this company in that case, because if we're going to get 0, because they will still charge us a $375 setup fee, even if no yearbooks are purchased that year. So if we're going to go with this, we better be sure that a bunch of yearbooks are going to get purchased. Otherwise, there's no point, right? And so this must be partial variation. So we can cross out A and B, which say direct variation, because there is an initial setup fee, or a y-intercept, meaning that if we sell 0 yearbooks, we still have to pay something. It's not going to cost us nothing to set up uh, to purchase 0 yearbooks. And then they ask, what is the initial value? So how much does it cost initially if we are to purchase no books? Well, it's going to cost us $375, right? 25 is how much per book. The initial cost that we need to pay is $375. So the answer therefore would be C. In fact, if it's anything other than 0, it can't be direct variation if the initial cost is not 0. And so for that reason, saying direct variation with 375 and with 25, already those are contradictions right there. Okay, let's move on to example 3. Example 3 says, a company ships CDs in crates of equal size. The graph below shows the relationship between the total mass of a crate and the number of CDs it contains. Which of the following equations represents the relationship between the total mass of a crate, M, and the number of CDs it contains, N? Well, let's see. First of all, what is our slope here? Well, slope is rise over run. So what's our rise? Our rise is 25 over run. Our run is 100. So that's going to be 1/4 or 0.25. So we know that the slope is 0.25. And so B and D are out because they're saying the slope is 4. And the slope is not 4, the slope is 0.25. If someone did run over rise by mistake, then that's the answer they would get. So that's why they put that answer in there as one of the suggestions. And then we need to know what is the B value. So if we put another dot here on this same line, right, it would be at 100. So therefore it's 100 would be our B value. And so therefore the answer is going to be A because it has the correct slope and the correct y-intercept. And we need our answer to have both. Good. Then this one says, which does not represent a linear relation? Well, remember, linear relations all have to have the form y equals mx plus b. Now, we can rearrange that, absolutely, and maybe some of it is 0, right? That's okay. But we cannot have x squared. Once we have x squared, it is not a linear relation, it's a quadratic relation. So, therefore, C does not represent a linear relation. Whereas all these other ones, even though here we have y equals 0, well, if our slope is 0 and our b value is 0, then we will get y equals 0. So that's fine. Same with x is equal to 5. That's still a linear relation, right? Where we would have an undefined slope, right? And then for D, it's also still 1 because we could just rearrange this and say y is equal to negative 2x plus 5. We can rearrange this and get to this. And well, this looks like a linear relationship with y equals mx plus b, and so it's good. It's good. So C is the answer because something we definitely cannot have under any circumstances in a linear relation is a squared, right? It's actually a different type of relation called a quadratic relation, which we'll learn in grade 10 as soon as we see that squared. So therefore, C does not represent a linear relation. Okay. What is the slope of the line represented by the equation below? So to find it, we must get this into y equals mx plus b form because m is our slope. So to do that, first I'm going to put 10y on the left, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 10 and get y equals 1/5 x plus 7 over 10. And remember, y equals mx plus b is our equation, with m, our coefficient for x, being the slope. So therefore 1/5 is the slope. So that's my answer, is going to be B, which is 1/5 is our slope here. Very good. Then let's do number 6. Number 6 says the endpoints of a line segment AB are 3, -12, and B is 6, k. What is the value of k if the slope of the line segment AB is -2? Well, we know the equation of a slope is equal to delta y over delta x, which is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? We know this, okay? So, therefore, what do we have? We have the slope that it's -2. We also have y1, which is -12. We don't know k, that's what we're trying to solve, and we know x1 and x2, that those are 6 and 3. So if we plug the values we have in and solve for k, we're going to find the answer. So we're going to get that -2 is going to equal k plus 12 over 3, which means k plus 12 is going to equal to -6, which means k is equal to -18, which is A, the first one. And there we go. So with this one, it's a matter, and I think that's what it is with a lot of these EQAO problems. To be honest, it's just a matter of thinking a little bit outside the box. Of okay, in this case, we have the slope, and we need to find one of the points, right? Whereas normally we're given the 2 points and we're asked to find the slope. So it's the same equation in those scenarios. It's just that we actually get to plug in a number that we're used to, actually having to find, and we're having to find a number that we're used to actually plugging in. So with some of these, EQAO questions, especially for this section with the linear relations, It just requires a little bit of forethought, a little bit of thinking outside the box to get our answer. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. It says information about 3 relationships between C in dollars and T in hours are shown below. So here's the first one. It's this table. Okay. Here's the second one. It's this equation. And here's the third one, which is this graph. How many of the 3 relationships between C and T have a rate of change of $4 per hour? So let's remember that rate of change is the same thing as slope. Okay, so the question they're really asking is what is the slope for all of these and how many of them is the slope $4 per hour? Okay, so this one here, what we need to do is to find the slope is we need to find delta y over delta x, right? Which means we're going to use any two of the points to figure that out. In this case, I'm going to treat h the same as x and c the same as y. Okay, so here we have 14 minus 10. And then for x, we have 2 minus 0, which means we have 4 over 2, which is 2. So therefore, here the rate of change is 2, right? It looks like we start by getting $10, even if we worked no hours, right? Or whatever service we're doing, it costs us $10. And then for every additional hour we use, it's an extra $2 that we're paying, right? As opposed to an extra 4. Because this extra 4 comes in after using 2 hours, not after 1 hour. So this one is a no. Long story short, this one is a no because m is equal to 2 here. Now, what about the second one? It says 4 plus 0.5t. So that means that initially it costs $4 and then it costs an extra 50 cents per hour. So therefore, m is equal to 0.5 or 50 cents. And this one's also a no. This one's also a no. It does not have a rate of change of $4 per hour. Now let's see if this last one does. I would hope so, in the sense that if it does not, then none of them would, but that is a possibility. That is a valid answer. So maybe it is. Let's just see. So this one, the slope is rise over run. So our rise is 2, right? Because this would be 6. So our rise would be 2, and our run is also 2, right? 0 to 2. So m is 1 here, right? We go up 1 for every hour. So therefore, when it asks us how many of the 3 relationships between C and T have a rate of change of $4 per hour, the answer is actually 0. None of them do. They all have different rates of change, different m values, but none of them have a rate of change of $4 per hour. And honestly, I mean, maybe that's clever of them, because I feel like someone guessing probably wouldn't choose that one. They would probably assume that at least one of the relationships did. But after some forethought and kind of looking at all of these individually and realizing what the slopes actually are, we can recognize that actually the answer is indeed 0. Okay, let's move on to 8. It says a line passes through point 6,4 and has a slope of negative a half. Which of the following graphs represents this line? So the first thing before we even find the slopes is I'm going to see if 6,4 is a point there, because if it isn't, we can just rule out that graph, because both these criteria have to be true. And it's a lot easier to see if 0.64 is on a graph than it is to see what the slope is. Also, I noticed that the slope, actually, it's negative 1/2. So that means it's a negative slope, and it's going to be sloping downward. So right off the bat, I'm going to rule out A and B, because A and B are going upward. They have positive slopes, so they can't be the answers. So it's got to be C or D. Okay, so does C have 6,4 as a point? No, it does not. Does D have 6,4 as a point? Yes, it does. So therefore, D is the only thing that fits the criteria, right? Because the other two ones didn't have the right slope, right? Because the slope is negative, so it can't be A or B based on that. And then C, even though it may or may not have, actually it does look like it has the right slope technically. However, the trouble is it doesn't pass through the 0.64. 4, right? It passes through 4, 6, right? It passes through 4, 6 here, but not through 6, 4, which is what they wanted. So therefore, our answer would be D. Good. All right, let's go to number 9. Number 9 says the maximum number of tickets that can be sold for a school play is 350, right? Maybe there's only 350 seats in the gym or the, the theater room or whatever it is, so the maximum we can sell is 350. The total profit earned can be determined by this equation, where P is equal to $4.50 times N, right? Times the number of tickets sold minus 1,080. Which of the following statements is true? A says the maximum profit is 1,080. Well, no, that's not true. 1,080 is basically the initial cost. So it costs us to rent out this theater $1,080, but we're selling the tickets for $4.50. And so we get $4.50 back every time we sell a ticket. Okay, so what would the maximum profit be for argument's sake? Well, the maximum profit would be, let's say we sold all 350 tickets. So we do 350 times $4.50, which gives us 1,575. And then we subtract 1,080, which is just our cost to rent out the theater. That's going to give us 495. So therefore the maximum profit would be 495, right? The maximum revenue we can get for selling the tickets is 1,575, but the profit isn't just the revenue and what money comes in, right? The business also needs to pay for that space. They have to pay $1,080 regardless of how many tickets they sell. So if they don't sell enough tickets, they could actually lose money, right? If they don't sell tickets, right? They're out $1,080 if they sell no tickets, right? Okay, so B, that brings us to B, and it says the maximum profit is 1,575. This is also false, right? Because as we said before, the maximum revenue is 1,575, but the maximum profit is not. It's 495. Okay. The next one says the profit is $0 when 240 tickets are sold. Well, this may be true or it might not be true, right? Let's check. When N is 240, is the profit 0? So 4.5 times 240 minus 1,080. So let's see, what's 4.5 times 240? It is 1,080. So yes, C is the correct answer, because if we sell 240 tickets, then that means we'll make just enough money back to pay for the theater's cost, right? To pay the initial cost for this school play that it costs to produce it or to rent out the space or whatever the initial cost is, regardless of the tickets sold. And so therefore, yes, C is correct. And D is incorrect, right? We already established that if all 350 tickets are sold, we actually make a profit of 495 bucks. And so D can't be right. And also it can't be right because with these ones, we're only choosing one answer, and we already established that it was C. But just even on its own, we can tell that D must be false. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to the next page. Okay, 2 gyms offer fitness classes. The graph below shows the total cost for the first gym. For 4 classes, both gyms have the same total cost. Which the following could represent the cost of the second gym? Okay, so basically the graph below shows the cost for the first gym, and it says for 4 classes they have the same cost. So what is the cost of 4 classes for the first gym, the gym that's represented by our graph? Well, let's see. The cost is $120. So if we take 4 classes at the first gym, it costs us $120. The question is, which of these, A, B, C, or D, could represent the second gym? Meaning, which one of these also has the property that for 4 classes it costs $120? Well, let's see. Let's check if that's the case for A. So for A, it would be 60 plus 4 times 4 for the cost of 4 classes. So that would be 60 plus 16, which is 76. And 76 is not the same as 120, so it cannot be A. What about for B? Let's see, 40 plus 15 times 4, which is 40 plus 60, which is 100. And 100 is closer to 120, but still not the same. So I'm going to say no. It would be cheaper to go to gym, gym represented by the equation with B, than it would be to go to the gym that's represented by the equation from our graph on the right. The next one is C. It says the total cost is made up of a membership fee and $10 per class. Well, this wouldn't work because if it's a $60 membership fee and we pay that once and then we pay $10 per class for 4 classes, which would total $40, that's still only $100. So that's also going to be a no. So it must be D. But let's double check and make sure. The total cost is made up of a membership fee and $20 per class. Well, this could work, right? Because we would have $40 one-time fee plus 4 times 20, right? 4 times each of the classes is going to be 80, and 40 plus 80 does give us 120. So other than just process of elimination, we actually can show and make an argument for why D is indeed the correct answer there. Very good. Okay. Number 11 says, which of the following data shows data from a nonlinear relationship? So remember, for a linear relationship, the first differences must be the same. So anything where the first differences are not the same would not show a linear relationship. So let's try for the first one. What's 5 minus 8? Well, that's negative 3. What's 2 minus 5? Also negative 3. What's negative 1 minus 2? Also negative 3. So this is linear. So therefore it can't be the right answer for the question that asks us which one is nonlinear. So I'm going to say no for A. Okay. What about B? We have 4 minus 3.25, which is 0.25. 0.75 rather, 75. Then we have 4.75 minus 4, which is also 0.75. And then we have 550 minus 4.75, which is 0.75. So this also can't be the answer because this is linear, right? This is linear. Okay, what about C? 8 and a third minus 8 is 1/3. 8 and 2/3 minus 8 and a third is 1/3 as well. And 9 minus 8 and 2/3 is 1/3 as well. So it cannot be C. So it must be D, but let's show why it is. Well, let's see. What's 16 minus 25? That's negative 9, right? And then 9 minus 16. Let's see. What's 9 minus 16? That's negative 7. And then we have 4 minus 9, which is negative 5. So these three are not the same. So this is a nonlinear relationship. Actually looks kind of like a quadratic relationship, but we don't have to know that yet. We just have to know that since these differences are not the same, since the first differences are not the same, therefore it is nonlinear, and it's the answer to this question. Very good. Okay, let's move on to question 12. It says the table far right shows the information about the linear relationship between Ben's total savings and the number of months he saves money. Which of the following represents this relationship? Okay, so basically we want to know which of the following, A, B, C, or D, represents the same relationship as the table shown on the far right. So this table over here is what we're comparing to, and we want to know which of these represents the table. So let's start with the first one. It says S equals 65N plus 345. Well, that's not really right because over here we get 345 for after 3 months, whereas this equation suggests that we get 345 after 0 months, right? That's our y-intercept. So we would need one of these to be 0, 345 for this to work. So that's a contradiction. So the answer is no, it can't be A. Now what about B? 195N plus 150. Well, maybe. Let's see. Are the first differences 195? Let's see if they are. Or actually it would be over 3. Let's see if the slope is 195, I should say, for the original. Okay? So M would be delta y over delta x, which would be, let's say, as y2 over y1, which let's just use the first 2 points, 540 minus 345 over 6 minus 3. And let's continue to solve. So 540 minus 345, divide that by 3, and we get 65. So 65 is the slope. However, the slope in B is not 65, it's 195, so that is not quite right, unfortunately. Good. All right, what about C? What about C? Well, let's see. After 3 months, how many savings dollars are in C? About 350 looks like. So this could be it. This could be it. Um, yeah. Yeah, this could be it for sure. Okay, what about this one here, the second one? How many savings after 3 months? Also looks like 345. So either one of these could be it based on what we've looked at so far. So how do we determine which one is correct? Well, we have our slope, right? And so what if we can use our slope to find out what the y-intercept is, right? So after 3 months, it's 345. So that means after 0 months, we would just have to subtract that slope 3 more times. So we would do 345 minus 65 times 3, which will get us down to 150. So that means another point on here would be after 0 months, it's $150 of total savings, or in other words, our initial savings would be $150. And this graph shows that here, and this other graph, C, does not show that. So therefore, the answer can't be C. The answer must be D because it's the only one that shows us the correct point of 3 and 345, and also that shows us the correct intercept that makes sense. Now it's a little bit hard to tell with this graph because we can't verify a second point if the second point works, because it doesn't go past 5 months. So the only point we can verify on these graphs is the 3 and 345, but we can also find another point in our table of values that will help us out here, and that's what we did. Very good. Okay, let's move on to question number 13. Oh, and this is getting kind of long. I will try to keep it under 45 minutes. I will do my best. Okay, a formula for determining the slope is given right? M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What is the slope that passes through the points 2, 3, and 5, negative 6? Well, let's see. M is equal to y2 minus y1, so that's going to be negative 6 minus 3 over x2 minus x1 is going to be 5 minus 2. So that's going to be negative 9 over 3, which is negative 3. So therefore, our answer is B. So nice and simple. Just we take 2 points and we use them to figure out what our slope is using our delta y over delta x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Good. Let's move on to 14. Lee thinks a line represented by the equation y equals negative 4x plus 6. Which line on the graph is steeper than Lee's line and has a y-intercept that has half the value of Lee's line? So first of all, I'm going to draw Lee's line. Okay, so Lee's line is negative 4x plus 6. So that means we start here at 6, and we're going to have our slope as negative 4. So we're going to go down 4 and over 1. So down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. Down 4, over 1. Down 4, over 1, like that. Okay? So let's connect them. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So which one is both steeper than Lee's line and has a y-intercept that has half the value of Lee's line? Well, first of all, the y-intercept of Lee's line is 6, and so the half of 6 would be 3, is the first thing we can know here, right? So therefore, it must be one that has y-intercept of 3. So it's either going to be line U or line P. Now, P is not steeper than Lee's line, right? P is less steep than Lee's line. The one that is steeper than Lee's line would be line U, and so therefore line U must be the answer just based on that process of elimination and using both of the points that we have. Very good. Okay. Now let's move into open response. The first one says getting fit. Maddie enrolls in a fitness program. Her cost is made up of a sign up fee and cost per class. The table below shows information about her cost in dollars when she attends N classes. What is the sign up fee? Okay, so to figure out the sign up fee, remember that that's the same as the y-intercept, right? The y-intercept is the sign-up fee because it's the initial cost that we must just pay once. We don't have to pay that ever again, okay? So we can find that by first finding the slope and then using the slope and one of these points to calculate it. I wish there was more space here, actually. There's not really a lot of space they gave us, but that's all right. I'll just kind of work my way onto the next page if I have to. Okay, so for this one, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my slope. Okay, so m is equal to delta y over delta x, right? So that's going to be, I think we know the drill, 74 minus 67 over 14 minus 12. So we have 74 minus 67, which is 7 over 2. So there we have it. So therefore the slope is 3.5 or 7 over 2. Okay, now we have that as our slope. I'm going to make an equation with that and say y equals 3.5x plus b. And I'm going to plug in one of my points. I'm going to choose 12 and 67 in this case to figure it out. So 67 equals 3.5 times 12 plus b, remembering that b is our sign-up fee. So our goal is to find out the sign-up fee. So 3.5 times 12, good, is 42. So therefore we have 67 equals 42 plus b. So therefore 67 minus 42 would be b, and b is 25. So therefore the sign-up fee is $25. Very good. Okay. Then it asks, is the relationship between the number of classes Maddie attends and her total cost a partial variation or a direct variation? Justify your answer. So a reminder that a partial variation is where we do have an initial sign-up fee of some value, right? We do have some sort of initial cost. So even if we take 0 classes, we still have to pay something. And that is the case here. So I would say partial variation. Partial variation. Whereas direct variation would be if there was no initial sign up fee. So if it was just you only pay for every class you go to. So if it was just pay $10 per class and there's no initial fee, that would be an example of direct variation. Whereas here we do have a sign up fee that is not $0. So we do have to pay just to be a part of this fitness program before we can even sign up for any classes and pay the fee per class, which sounds like that was $3.50 for the class fee, right? And so therefore, it is partial variation, and that's the reason. Good. All right. Do we just have one more? We do. Okay. So we're okay for time then. Let's do one more. It says number 2, making equations. Determine the equation of a line that has the same y-intercept as 2x plus y plus 6 equals 0 and is perpendicular to the line shown on the grid. Show your work. Okay. So we want to determine the equation with the same y-intercept as this one is the first part. So I'm going to ignore the second part for now and let's just figure out the first part. Okay? So to do that, I need to first find out what is the y-intercept here, right? I've got to do that first. So we need to rearrange this equation here in order to make it in y equals mx plus b format. So that means y is on one side and then everything else moves to the other side. So I'm going to keep y on my left and everything else has got to move over. So y equals negative 2x minus 6, right? And remember our y-intercept is the same as our b value. So that means our y-intercept in this case is going to be negative 6. So for this equation we're making, because it says determine the equation, we know the y-intercept would be negative 6. So it's going to be down here is one of the points. It also says that it's perpendicular to the line shown on the grid. Well, what do we know about the slope based on perpendicularity? We know that if two lines are perpendicular, then that means they have negative reciprocal slopes. So if we find the slope of the line on the grid and then we take the negative reciprocal of it, we will get the slope for the equation that we are trying to determine. Okay, so let's first find the slope of the line on the grid, right? So slope here is going to be rise over run, or delta y over delta x. You decide. But let's start here. We have rise of 2 over run of 3. So it would be 2/3, right? So what is the negative reciprocal slope of that, right? The negative reciprocal slope of this. So we'll just say slope of the perpendicular would be negative 3 over 2, right? I took the reciprocal, I switched the 3 and the 2, and I put a negative sign in front. So therefore, our equation, the equation is y equals negative 3 over 2x minus 6, right? Because all I did here is I said, well, we found out that the slope of the equation we're trying to determine is negative 3 over 2 based on this. And we also found out that the y-intercept is negative 6, right? Because it must be the same y-intercept as we had here. And the y-intercept for here we discovered by rearranging was negative 6. And so that's the answer for that one. Awesome. Well, I hope you learned a lot from this. I hope this helped out with, oh, wow, that's a lot of pages, with linear equations and just kind of reviewing those main concepts. And I also hope this helps you for your EQAO. But yeah, that's it for today. And I will see everybody next day for the next section, which is academic measurement. So I will see everyone next day to talk about academic measurements. Good work today, everyone, and goodbye.